Hi, today we're working on this teeny tiny elephant. This guy had a lot of surprises for me. For one thing, he's a lot dirtier than I had anticipated. A big part of the restoration process is assessing what kind of stain you're dealing with, because that changes how you treat it. First assessment, this guy smelled very much like cigarette smoke, so that immediately had me worried. And the more I looked at it, I was like, oh, this guy was supposed to be gray. I had originally thought he was a type of tan, or, you know, like that cream colored fur, but no, he's gray. And that was another red flag, because gray is pretty difficult to clean. Don't ask me why. It's something about that color makes it really difficult with these guys. And as I started unstuffing him, the first layer was the really nice Russian cotton stuffing, and as I dug deeper, it turned into the foam. Not inherently a bad thing, but this guy has some patchy discoloration on his face, which now I know where that came from. And as you can see, this is degrading pretty bad. It's just like dust at this point. So for me, this stuff isn't a problem until it starts to degrade. And based on the assessment of the outside of this piece, I could tell that it, at the very least, has not been stored properly. So obviously some of the issues that are happening on the outside have something to do with what's inside. It's like this really bad combination going on. Plus the gray and red fur, it's gonna be a thing going into this cleaning. Okay, because it's so soiled, I decided to take this apart because it needs a really deep cleaning. And I did a spot test and the red was bleeding. And just a disclaimer, I'm a trained seamstress, so I do feel like this is in my skill set, but I wouldn't recommend doing this. Okay, into the bath he goes. As expected, it freaking reeks. It smells so bad, and it's getting a lot of like yellow stuff out. It's honestly like, it has like tobacco tar stains on it. Like you can see the parts that are getting gray like really fast, but the parts that are actually stained are staying stained. And here's just a little clip of the red in its own little special bath, and as you can see, the water's very red. Again, this isn't always the case, but with this one it was. Oftentimes you can just do the whole thing in cold water and you're good, but this guy, his stains are too extreme for that. So I ended up trying 3 different cleaners, because as I mentioned, different cleaners work on different stains. So this is him, I think in the second bath, and it's lifting a little bit. Like again, the parts that were just regular old dirty have gotten clean, but this big old stain is definitely still there. So I'm gonna let him soak for a little while longer. And I was a little worried about overwashing him because sometimes that can cause a lot of hair loss. So I decided to take him out and let him dry and see how he looked after. And he's looking pretty good. So I'm gonna put him back together and spot clean as needed, if just depending on how it looks when I'm done. So yeah, he's looking pretty good actually. Sometimes you gotta just see it dry and see if the contrast with the stain is still as bad as you think it is when it's wet. And I saved this little part of the cotton stuffing that was inside him, so I'm gonna use that and then supplement the foam with this recycled cotton stuffing. And his face needed a little bit of touch-ups where the paint had been removed. And I was still noticing a tiny bit of the yellow stain, so I spot cleaned just a tiny bit and then blow dried that out. And here he is done. The lighting on this particular day in this particular corner of my room looks a little bit yellow. So he turned out a bit more gray than what it looks like here, but he turned out really good considering how difficult it was to clean him. After I've been sitting with it for a while, I think there's like a couple more things I could have done, but again, I didn't want to go like too crazy and potentially damage this guy. So I'm gonna accept him as is. He's so cute and tiny. Like, how could you not love that face?